Fight fans, as I always say, better late than never. I dearly wish I would have brought this video to you guys a lot sooner than I have, but nonetheless, I was busy, had a lot of things that I had to get done in the process that is life. Trust my process, trust the process, and trust that this UFC 272 post-fight reaction video, post-fight reaction podcast will be one that leaves you entertained and leaves you feeling like you're getting what you came for, which is yours truly, Ryan Thomas, giving the hot takes of UFC 272, my post-fight reaction thoughts. Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. That is the thought of the event, right? That's the main event. That's the biggest takeaway from that fight. I'm going to give you guys what I think about the bout, what I thought about the fight, and really what I think should be next for both fighters. And that's my favorite part of these post-fight reaction videos, is what I feel should be next for both fighters and why. So Covington versus Masvidal, obviously this fight had a ton of heat going into it, and that was essentially what made this pay-per-view worth it, right? There didn't need to be a title on the line for Covington versus Masvidal. It was two friends turned bitter rivals, two fighters that had talked a ton of trash heading into this one prior to the bout even being signed. They talked smack for years against one another. Covington saying the friendship ended because of this, Masvidal saying the friendship ended because of that. And eventually the UFC was like, okay, this is a fight that we have to make. This is a fight that is crucial for both fighters. Both guys lost to Kamaru Usman twice. So with a win, that fighter inches closer to relevancy. With a loss, the fighter that loses this fight is out of relevancy. And I think that is true. That does ring true. That was my thought heading into the fight. That was a thought that was echoed by guys like John Anik, who said whoever loses this fight will probably never fight for a title again. I agree with that, because Masvidal, the loser of this fight, has lost 3 straight and has proven that he can't stuff a takedown. As tough as that is to say, from his vantage point, my vantage point, I'm outside the octagon. I like to pay these fighters as much respect as they deserve, in the sense that Jorge Masvidal is a great fighter. He's been in the sport a long time. He's fought the who's who, but just in terms of Colby's skills right now versus Jorge Masvidal's skills right now, we clearly saw which fighter is better right now, which fighter in a mixed martial arts bout who can mix their tools better out of the two. And Colby did that with his wrestling. And a lot of fans that are mixed martial arts fans that I see on message boards and stuff like that, they say to me or to other people that I read in response to that, oh, Covington just did what he needed to do to win. That's a fighter's job. You don't train your ass off for 6 months or 5 months or 4 months or 3 months to just fight in the lane that you are worst in, or fight in the lane that puts you in danger. At the end of the day, it's about getting the win and receiving as little damage as possible. And Colby Covington did that despite being dropped and hurt in the 4th round. Colby Covington fought with a great game plan. Put himself out there to be hit, shooting in for takedowns constantly, applying the chaotic pressure that he does each and every bout of his career. The majority of those, he has won. He's 17-3, 18-3 now, I believe. So Colby Covington fought this fight as I thought he would. Jorge Masvidal, it was apparent to me early on in this one that Jorge Masvidal didn't have the gas tank to weather the storm, weather the chaos that is Colby Covington. And I think that was really what the story of that fight was, is that Masvidal couldn't maintain the cardiovascular ability from the 1st round forward, due in large part to the fact that Colby Covington was just too much for him. His pace was too high, and it just became apparent that Covington was just going to out-wrestle him the entire fight. There were fleeting moments where Masvidal did have success landing some strikes. As I mentioned, in that 4th round, he was almost able to get it done, but nonetheless, wasn't able to do it. Covington gets the W, and what's next for Colby Covington? Now, Colby Covington is a very unique character because I think, one, section of the fan base of mixed martial arts in the UFC loves to hate him, and another section of the fan base loves to love him. I've said that about the New York Yankees. I've said that about the Dallas Cowboys, and I think I could say that for Colby Covington. I truly enjoy Colby Covington because I understand what Colby Covington has done and what he is doing moving forward from this fight. Here's a fighter that does not have the most entertaining style in the octagon. He's just a great wrestler, a great technical mixed martial artist. He's got decent stand-up, but nothing to really wow anyone. He's never knocked anyone out. To my memory bank, going back to that, I've never seen that, at least in the UFC from Covington. What I have seen from Colby Covington is a dominant skill set, a dominant mind in terms of the one-track tunnel vision that he has within his fights. That is highly respectable to turn on that competitive switch, put yourself in that octagon and to push forward constantly on his opposition. I think that's what pushed Kamaru Usman to the test not once but twice in the two closest fights that Usman's ever fought in. Both of them were against Colby Covington. That's a fact. So Colby Covington deserves a ton of respect. I think it's easy to not like him based on the brash style that he has on the microphone. But he is somebody that I think gets it, gets the business, gets that he has to sell himself while his fighting style is not necessarily the most entertaining. He, in and of himself, is entertaining outside the cage, which makes people want to tune in, whether they want to see him get knocked out, whether they want to see him win. Doesn't matter. The money is handed out the same way. So Colby Covington, what's next for him? He called out Dustin Poirier in the aftermath of his victory over Masvidal. And I really like that fight, but I highly doubt that it will happen, due in large part to the fact that I just don't think Poirier wants to fight him. And I'm not saying it because Poirier is scared. I just think Poirier doesn't want to give someone that he doesn't like that much the time of day. Dustin Poirier wants to do his own thing, and he's a lightweight. Poirier's hinted at fighting at welterweight against Nate Diaz. I think that's a fight that makes sense for Poirier. Colby Covington, what's next for Colby Covington? I honestly think that there is one fight for Colby Covington that he has to watch very closely, and it is a fight that is set to take place in a couple months, and it's a fight that he would fight the winner of this fight. So I say this in the sense that the winner of this fight for Colby should be Colby's next opponent. The winner of Khamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns, I believe, should be the next opponent for Colby Covington, and I'll tell you why. Chael Sonnen had a take that he thinks Colby Covington should move up to 185 and fight Israel Adesanya. I think that I think Chael Sonnen believes that Anderson Silva is Colby Covington's Kamaru Usman, who Anderson Silva was, I should say, to Chael. I think Chael envisions Usman as Colby Covington's Anderson Silva. And I think Chael envisions Israel Adesanya as Colby Covington's John Jones. Chael Sonnen lost twice to Anderson, moved up to 205 to take on John Jones, and lost that as well. But he does have a point. If you are the number one contender in a division, your next fight should be a title shot. Whether you've lost to that champion twice or not, you could fight another weight class up and fight that challenger and fight that title. Get that title shot, I should say. So I think Chael does have a point on that. I just don't think Dana is keen on giving Colby a title shot against Izzy without a fight at 185. Chael was a much better needle mover, I should say. He was a much better needle mover than that of Colby. And at that time, it was just simply a different time in the sport where John Jones needed that heel too. But if you've checked out the UFC 185-pound weight class, Israel Adesanya needs that heel too. Needs that rival too. So maybe Chael is onto something. He convinced me. He convinced me as I'm talking about it. But realistically, I think Colby Covington's best weight class is at 170. I think it is a little bit of a stretch to envision him at 185 right now, for now. And this Khamzat Chimaev is a fighter that is getting a push from casual fans, slowly getting that push from hardcore fans, and is getting that push very much so from Dana White and company. And this next fight for Khamzat against Gilbert Burns is as big as any. I think Gilbert Burns is a great fighter, but I think Hamza training the way he trains, I think he is for real. I was a little bit skeptical. I thought he was a little bit of a hype train until I saw his last fight. And it wasn't necessarily the opposition that he fought that made me go, wow, he just beat such and such. It was more about his skill and just going in there, simply going in there and doing what he said he would do. That makes my ears perk up like a golden retriever. That makes me say to myself, well, I think this guy might have a lot more to his skill set than what I even realized and what even most realized, even the people that believed in him the most. So the winner of Hamzat versus Burns, I think Hamzat's going to get that win. And I think Colby will have to fight him to get that next shot against Kamaru Usman because, frankly, the second Usman versus Covington fight, Covington lost by 1 round. So who is to say that Covington won't fight Usman again? I know Usman would fight Covington again in a heartbeat because he makes Usman money. And I think that that's what I see for Colby Covington next. Next for Jorge Masvidal, this is where things can get a little bit tricky. Because as I mentioned, the loser of this fight would in fact be on the outside looking in to ever receiving a title shot again. Masvidal is coming off of 3 straight losses, 2 of which to Usman, 1 of which to Colby Covington. Those are the top 2 guys at 170. But Jorge Masvidal, no mistake about it, is a name. And is somebody that people want to tune in to see fight. No matter how many times he's lost, people respect him, they enjoy him, and they want to see him fight. So I think what should be next for Jorge Masvidal, and both fights would be massive, but I think 2 names that jump out at me for Jorge Masvidal as far as what's next, 2 names. I say Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz. Now, the thought of Conor fighting Jorge Masvidal last year was silly. He was still a 155er. If you follow at the Notorious MMA on Instagram or Twitter, you would see that Conor McGregor is huge now. He looks like a middleweight. He's bulked up, whether it's the time off with his leg injury, only working on his upper body to stay active, or whether it is just simply eating what he wants to eat while he is working out, which is making him bigger. I think of a few different reasons, a few different things could be the cause of it. But nonetheless, I don't see McGregor ever fighting at 155 again, barring that thought that would lead to a drastic weight cut at this point. I see McGregor is 185 to 190 pounds right now. And if I am right, if the eye test from yours truly is right, I think McGregor will fight at 170. He liked fighting at that weight against Donald Cerrone as well as Nate Diaz. And I think we could see that as a potential bout for Masvidal. It would sell a ton of pay-per-views, regardless as to whether or not both guys have lost. It's a fight that I think a lot of people would want to see. The Nate Diaz rematch, I think that's a fight that a lot of people want to see. That fight was stopped due to a cut that was opened up by Masvidal on Nate Diaz and I believe it was his left or right eye. And that was a bad way for the BMF title to go down and a bad way for the BMF title to end for that BMF title bout between Masvidal and Diaz that Nate Diaz made a reality, in all honesty. So that's what I see potentially for Jorge Masvidal or Colby Covington. I see for Covington, the winner of Hamzat versus Burns. For Masvidal, Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz would suffice. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was my UFC 272 post-fight main event recap featuring Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. Thanks for tuning in to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast for all things NFL combat sports right here. Subscribe on YouTube and like on the Facebook page, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Greatly appreciate the support from combat sports fans all around the world. Thank you very much.